You're listening to the ADHD Support Talk Radio podcast. ADHD Support Talk Radio is sponsored by addclasses.com. Sign up now for free webinars and helpful ADHD events at addclasses.com. And ADHD Support Talk Radio is also the longest running podcast for adults with ADHD. This is your co-host, Tara McGillicuddy, and I'm back today with my co-host, Lynne Edris. And in just a moment, we are going to be talking about the ADHD tax. But Lynne, before we get started talking, can you just let our listeners know a bit about you? For those who may not know you, I know you do so many podcast episodes, they must know you by now.
But if not, I want to thank you all for listening. I'm Lynne Edris. I am, as Tara said, co-host here at ADHD Support Talk. I am a productivity and ADHD coach. So I help overwhelmed professionals and entrepreneurs reduce procrastination, improve time management, and get more done with less effort so that they have more time, more energy, and even more money for what they love most. So you can learn more about me and what I do at www.coachingadvantages.com.
And as I said, my name is Tara McGillicuddy. I am the founder and the co-host of ADHD Support Talk Radio. I also offer lots of other ADHD support type resources, and I help people to shift and heal their energy. You can learn more about me and the products and services I offer by going to my website, taramcgillicuddy.com. And today we decided to talk about an important topic, which is the ADHD tax. Probably not that fun for most of us, but it's something that a lot of us, probably most of us with ADHD deal with in our lives. So,
Absolutely.
Lynne, where would you like to get started talking on our topic?
Well, I guess we should explain to people what we mean when we talk about the ADHD tax. So that's a term that we throw around, and most of you have probably heard it before, but maybe not everybody, maybe not all our listeners. So in general, what we're talking about when we refer to the ADHD tax, so to speak, it's those things that have a cost to us in our lives that are either a direct or an indirect result of our ADHD related challenges. So there are lots of them, and they can really add up financially and otherwise, right? So when we're talking about the ADHD tax, oh gosh, we're talking about things like late fees and late penalties and higher interest rates because your credit score isn't great because you aren't managing your money well, or you aren't paying, on your bills regularly. We're talking about things like rushed shipping when you've forgotten about something until the last minute. Gosh, there are so many. What are you thinking? What comes up for you, Tara?
I think the big one is the credit card late payments.
Yes.
I had one in my early 20s. I'm close to 50 now, so it was quite a few years ago. I had my car repossessed.
Oh my
I
goodness.
just stopped, and it was summer, so I wasn't working, but that was like the big one. And that just took so much out of me emotionally and energetically. And I felt like such a loser, such a failure for so long. And it happened around the same time where I lost a cousin in a car accident. He passed away. So my emotional state was a mess. It was
Yeah.
So that for me was, and it was related to the ADHD. I'll put it off, and then all of a sudden, I got the calls. I avoided the calls, from the car company or whoever, whoever I borrowed the money from back then. And when it finally came, it was shocking. It was awful.
Yeah.
And, years I learned to, do better with money and stuff. So that's like one of the ones that wasn't only a financial issue, that was that emotional thing.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
it was avoidance, and it was
Yeah.
also the ADHD. I'll put it off, I'll do it later because I didn't want to deal with it. But I mean, that's probably one of the more extensive ones or bigger ones, but there's little fees that add up too.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
yeah, I mean,
Like food that spoils because
yes,
you
yes,
bought too much or you bought the wrong things or you've
yeah,
forgotten what you bought, right?
yeah,
The duplicate purchases that so many of us do. You
yeah,
can't find something, or you forget that you have it, or you don't know that you have it, and you
yep,
buy another one, right? I mean,
yeah,
there
yeah,
are so many. Gosh, like taking a taxi or a ride share because you miss the public transport and because you were late, or
Yeah, yeah,
having to pay higher parking charges to park closer because you're late for work or whatever appointment. There are so many of these little
yeah,
things that over time, some of them are little, some of them are not so
yeah.
little, really accumulate. Tara and I were talking before we came on. I had a client, and I always remember this one in particular because I had a new client who came to me, and the day of her consultation, she was like, she broke down in tears on our call together because she had forgotten to pay her water bill, and she had to find somebody to take her dogs for a couple of days and go stay in a hotel. And it wasn't that she didn't have the money to pay her water bill. If I remember correctly, she said she drove around with the water bill in her purse or her work bag or whatever, and just forgot to pay it. She didn't do anything about the notices or notice them. She wasn't managing her mail well, she wasn't returning phone calls, all of that kind of stuff. And she was mortified that someone was going to see her, someone from work or someone she knew was going to see her coming out of this local hotel and ask her why she was staying there. I mean,
Yeah.
it was like a breaking point for her. And that's the kind of story I hear from clients all the
Yeah.
time, right?
Yeah, I had that type of thing years ago where my car insurance, I didn't pay it. And it wasn't because I didn't have the money. It was it was that type of thing. And it got canceled. But it was reinstated, but the new company forgot to contact the registry of motor vehicles or whatever.
Oh
And I
no.
got pulled over for my sticker that expired. And that's a whole another story. And this is back way before not before computers, before everything was instant. I had got my car towed. I had to take the day off from work.
Oh my
it,
goodness.
it technically wasn't my fault at the moment, but it was my fault because I let expired.
Right.
So it was that type of thing. And here I am in the back of a cop car. He gave me a ride. I wasn't arrested, but he gave me a ride to, my house at the time. This was probably 25, almost 30 years or 25 years ago. But here's this thing. It was that type of embarrassment.
Oh
And
my gosh. Mortifying.
it was because at the time I did not have my finances in order. I didn't have strategies. And because I didn't have strategies, I was avoiding it. And then it just
Yeah.
builds up. So these are the things. And I think I'm sharing these things that were painful to me years ago. But part of the reason I'm sharing it is because there's people listening and they hear these and it's like, I don't feel as alone, or, hey, she found ways to better manage her money and feel better about herself. So I think the thing is, there is hope. There's strategies.
No,
There's
absolutely.
ways to improve it. But I think the
Absolutely.
thing I learned the most thing is to deal with it, you
Yes.
can't just avoid it. I know
Yep.
it's uncomfortable when you see the late fees. It's but what happens once you deal with it, you can come up with a plan. And sometimes you can call the credit card companies or whatever else it is. And sometimes they'll waive the fees.
Right.
So, I mean, they just want you to stop ignoring them or avoiding them, I think is a better term.
Exactly. Exactly. So many of us do that, right? And I remember this, we're going back like way far, like pre everything being online and sort of automatic. I had done some sort of a skincare. It was kind of pricey, like for us at the time. It was a lot of money. I had done some kind of skincare, bought some kind of skincare, something that was one of those auto ship deals.
Mhm.
When I went to cancel it, I had to make a phone call, and then it was
Oh,
like a whole
yeah.
thing, right? Like you couldn't just push a button like you can with
Mhm.
with a lot of things, or really you should be able to do with everything, but that's a whole other conversation. But
Yeah.
I finally made the phone call, and they like reimbursed at least the last shipment and gave
Mm.
me a credit for that. But I was getting this product, spending a lot of money on it, something that I wasn't using. And actually I've TMI, but I have like super sensitive skin. So I actually never could use it from the
Oh,
beginning, but I
wow.
kind of accumulated several months of this stuff that I ended up giving away to friends and family. But it was embarrassing. It was
Yeah.
embarrassing to have to tell my husband. I just couldn't make myself make that phone call.
Mhm.
And I didn't have the systems in place, the
Yeah.
processes in place you know, to be able to get myself to make that
Yeah.
phone call. And I think nowadays, so many people, I hear this all the time, so many things are subscription services, like
Yes.
so many things from whatever you watch, however you watch your entertainment or your listen to your music and, gyms and all of the other things, right? There's so many subscriptions, and so many of us are, I always use, like, we're ostriches with our heads in the sand. We don't want to look, we don't want to know, like, we may have forgotten, but we're afraid to look at our bank statements, we're afraid to look at our credit card bills, so we avoid them, we ignore them. And it really does, I always tell my clients, like, if you can picture, I'm kind of mixing metaphors here, but if you can picture like the ostrich with the head in its sand, I always think of was it Roadrunner cartoons? Like, that ostrich really has like a big old target on its backside. Like, you putting your head in the sand makes you vulnerable.
It
and
does.
puts you at risk. But that is such a hard thing when you have ADHD and
it is.
you haven't learned how to do that.
And it will probably be uncomfortable the first time you look at it,
Yes.
but you have to get past it. And once you get past that discomfort, you can be practical, you can detach, and you can even, make progress and feel better about yourself.
Yeah.
But I think the big thing is just take a look at your bank statement, take a look at your emails, whatever else, PayPal. I mean, I've gone into PayPal and I'm like, what is that? And like,
Absolutely.
okay, it's something I signed up for 5 years ago that I don't use anymore. I never used. And
Right.
once I canceled it, I felt that relief, more positive energy. So I think that's the thing, is to really look at it. And now some of these things that you can't cancel online. They want you to
Yeah.
call.
Yep.
So understand it might be a little annoying, discomfort, pain in the
Yep.
butt to deal with someone and be on the phone for a half hour, or a chat agent or whatever, but dealing with it, I think, is the biggest one. Then coming up with a system, because like you were talking about, a lot of things are automated.
Yes.
Automation is good. Automation is amazing. But we
Yes.
need
But
checks and balances to check that automation once a month, once a week, whatever makes sense for you. Because sometimes like that automation is great, but you forget about it. I was talking to you before I came on. I like automation for a credit card for my tolls for when
right.
highway.
Easy Pass or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I think in Massachusetts, whatever it is. And my credit card had expired that was attached to it. And I get emails every month that say, here's your statement for Easy Pass. And I never really look at it. And my card expired and I kept getting all these things I wasn't reading. And one of the last ones said, you cannot drive through the state of Maine anymore because you owe us money. And then if you need to pay it, you have to pay it with a cashier's check. And I'm like, what the heck? But call this number. I finally called the number, got the fees waived. I was able to pay, with the credit card. But here's this thing. If I had checked my automated, credit
Yeah.
card thing, if I
Yep.
had looked at it once a month, once a year. I don't know, it's probably been years since the last time I looked at it. Because that's the thing, everyone's automated, but there
Yeah.
some things with your credit cards that when
Yes.
they're renewed, sometimes they renew even if your card is expired, and there are
Yes.
other types that it doesn't. So that's like it's important to pay attention to that.
Absolutely. I had a similar thing happen, and I was just thinking about this. It didn't end up costing me anything but like a lot of embarrassment, but that's part of the ADHD tax too, right? It impacts how you feel about yourself.
Yeah.
I'm not going to name the organization, but an organization that I advertise with, and I have for, I don't know, 15 years probably, was purchased by a different company.
Oh.
And the organization originally, they had my credit card on file. They billed me quarterly. I didn't realize that when they changed, I'm sure I didn't read the details or whatever. So
Yep.
it completely on me until I got a late notice that my advertising charges were overdue. And I'm thinking, and I responded, don't you have my card on file? And they said, we don't keep cards on file. And I'm like, sure, you keep cards on file. You guys have been auto billing me for years. And then I realized it's not the same company. It's not the same organization. And I had a big fat couple of quarters of advertising fees to pay all at once.
Wow, yeah.
Fortunately, they didn't penalize me or charge me any fees or anything, but it was embarrassing.
Yeah.
That's what I do for a living, is help people not do
Yeah,
those
and
kinds
it's
of
like,
things,
okay. But I
but
mean,
it
I think
happens
that's
to
the thing
us too,
though.
right? That's the
we're
thing.
human. We still have
Yes.
ADHD challenges, ADHD
Mhm.
moments, and but I think it's easier to bounce back from them.
Yes.
It might be
Yes.
embarrassing, but it's not gonna, ruin your whole month where it might have, years before. But we learn from our experiences, and not only will we, make changes in our own lives, we help our clients and our listeners hopefully,
Right.
find better ways to manage their money, to reduce or eliminate the ADHD tax.
Absolutely. So if you've got something going on in your life that is, ADHD tax related, the worst thing you can do is like go into that shame and blame
Yeah.
spiral that we tend to do, right? As soon as
Mhm.
I always say, as soon as you start to beat yourself up and you go into self-flagellation mode, you are 180 degrees from where you need to be to solve the problem. You
Mhm.
can't find a solution or create a
Yeah.
system or create, a process or strategies for yourself to prevent these things or mitigate these things or deal with them when they happen if you go right into that shame spiral.
Yeah.
So
So,
trying to detach a little bit is
yeah.
really important.
Yeah, detaching, it's easier said than done. Sometimes you can't
Oh,
completely
absolutely.
detach, but if you can detach somewhat and look at it from an analytical type of perspective and be like, okay, how can I solve this problem? Like,
Hmm.
one of my ADHD taxes is sometimes I pay more for gas because for my car, because I get it closest to the highway because it's more convenient, or I'm not going to make it to the one that's, I don't know, 5 cents cheaper per gallon. So for me, that might be, filling my gas tank when it's half full. So
Hmm.
and or it might just be like maybe the convenience is worth, the 3 cents difference for me or whatever else it is.
Absolutely.
So I can look that from a practical standpoint, instead of saying, okay, I'm just a whatever, a bad person, because
I'm irresponsible. I'm
yeah, because
whatever.
I go to
Yeah.
the one closest to the highway because, that. So that's the thing. How can you improve the situation? How can you solve the problem? Looking at it from a practical point of view, as opposed to I messed up again. I'm a loser or whatever it is.
Here I go again, right?
Yeah.
So again, that's it, right? If you aren't looking at it, you can't make choices,
Yes. Yes.
right? Your decision to look at it, even though it's hard to look at it, to analyze it, to
Yep.
log into your bank accounts, to look at your credit card, statements closely.
Hmm.
That's hard, but
Yeah.
once you can get yourself to start to do that, it puts
Mhm.
you in a place of choice. You
Yes.
can make decisions about where your money goes. You can make decisions about, for that gas price example is a good one. Like
Yeah.
that's an ADHD tax I'm willing to pay. It's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
small one, and
Yeah.
I'm okay if you want to think of that as an ADHD tax. I'm
Yeah.
okay with paying a little more for gas, knowing that it's a couple of bucks here and a couple of bucks there. I'm willing to absorb that for the convenience. But if you aren't looking at it, you're not in a place of choice. You're
Yes.
taking your
Yes.
choices and your decision making power over your life and your finances kind of out of your hands and giving it to someone else. So
Mhm.
I think that's huge,
It
right?
is.
It's
It
the
is. Yeah.
avoidance that gets us into so much
And
trouble.
if you're avoiding it in the negativity, emotion is too intense for you, maybe consider working with a mental health professional who understands ADHD, or, an ADHD coach or support person who gets it. Maybe you talk to
Absolutely.
somebody else, who understands. I mean, listening to us is like, okay, good, they get it, they understand. So I mean, that's the thing, that we know it's hard. I know it's hard. I mean, I
Absolutely.
just remember I can feel the pit in my stomach when I got my car repossessed when I'm in my 20s. And I know people are still going through that thing, but it can get better. And like I said,
Absolutely.
if it's too hard for you to deal with, if you're shutting down, if you're in that emotional mental paralysis, then
Get some
maybe
help.
get some help outside of yourself, whether it's a mental health professional, a coach, maybe there's a book, there's something, but you don't have to, live this way anymore if it's that bad.
Absolutely. All of those things that are hard to manage with your brain, which are all sort of an outcropping of your ADHD challenges,
Hmm.
they're all things that you can learn to put systems and strategies and
Yes. Yes.
processes and tools in place to support you so that you don't have to manage it in your brain. That's
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of, the point, but not if you're not going to look at it.
Yeah.
right? You're
Yeah.
not going to be able to put those things in place to
Yeah.
support yourself if you're not going to look at it.
I think the one thing we really didn't talk about is that we started a little bit, like the impulsivity of
Oh
buying.
my goodness. Yes.
I mean,
That's a
a
big one.
strategy for that, I wouldn't say a simple one, but one that seems to work for a lot of people is having a 24-hour rule or something on that
Yes.
idea where maybe if it costs more than $25 or $10 or whatever it is, you have
You
like a certain
decide. Right.
amount, or it could just
Right.
be anything, if you're someone like me and used to buy like 5 hairbrushes because you lose them all the time. Maybe you find your hairbrush first, but the impulsivity, have something like a 24-hour rule where, okay, do I really need it? Does it make sense? That, because the impulsivity can be a challenging one that leads to the other issues related to the
Absolutely.
ADHD tax. So and I don't have the hyperactive ADHD, but I can be impulsive with my spending
Oh,
at times.
absolutely.
And I have guidelines or rules, whatever you want to
Yeah.
call them, that I, put in over the years. So I wouldn't make impulsive purchase. Every once in a while I still do, but it's not
Right.
like it used to be.
No, absolutely. And that's something I do. I call them policies. I don't
Yes.
really I tend to bristle at things like rules or,
Yeah.
especially when I don't see the point of them. But
Yes.
I
Yeah.
have a 24-hour policy. If it's not
Yeah.
something I went out intentionally to buy, like
Yeah.
it's not on my list,
Yeah.
then I have a 24-hour
Yeah.
policy that it literally stays, it's not allowed to cross the threshold to my house for
Yes. Yes.
24 hours. So I got really good at making sure the
Yeah.
receipt is with the thing.
Yep.
And then, I don't have a trunk anymore. My car is open in the back, but in the old days, I used to have to have a note for myself to check the trunk,
Yeah.
on a
Yeah.
regular basis, because I'd leave stuff in the trunk and I'd forget it was there.
Oh,
But,
yep.
that became my policy. And it actually was amazing to me personally, how much stuff like I didn't feel like I wanted to bring in the house. It's
Yeah.
the kind of asking myself, is this going to be one more thing I have to declutter, a
Yeah.
couple of months down the road?
Mhm.
Where's this going to go? How am I going, asking myself those sort of utilitarian questions,
Yeah.
but do I really want to bring this in and kind
Yeah.
of add this to the equation, so to speak? And I got tired of returning stuff.
Mhm.
So that now, instead of bringing it in, my 24 hours is, before I buy it,
Yep.
unless it's something that is like a crazy sale and
Yeah.
the opportunity is going to be gone, as
Yeah.
long as I can return it, then I'll, leave it in my car for 24 hours. But it did really help me kind of hit that pause button a
Yeah.
little bit more with purchases. And I'm one who, that financial impulsivity is never big stuff. So for me to put like
Yeah.
$100,
Yep.
$50, sort of threshold on that policy, it was always like, $5, $10, 25.
Yeah, but the
That
little
stuff
things add
really
up.
adds
Yeah,
up.
yeah. And
Really
if
adds
it's
up.
clutter and stuff that,
More crap you've got to
yeah,
manage down
yeah.
the
I
road,
mean,
right?
we have enough of that already. And it could be like you have a scale of 1 to 5, a scale of 1 to 10 on, does it make sense to bring this into my house? Am I
Right,
going to use it?
right.
People are different. So for some people, it might just ask the question. Other people, you might benefit more from a scale of 1 to 10, 1 to 5, whatever
Yeah.
it is.
Thinking about what what are your criterion for it to be able to come across the threshold, or however you want to think about it,
Yeah.
and I do other things too, like just I have like a net zero policy for bringing stuff into the house. So unless it's like consumable or perishable,
Yeah.
something of equal purpose, size, shape, whatever has to go out.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's not worth the effort. So
Yeah. Yeah. I get it.
I'm not going to bring it in because I have to figure out what needs to go out. And I probably don't really need it. If I have to think that hard about like what's going to go out, I
Mm-hmm.
probably don't
Yeah.
really need it anyway. So, but it can, that ADHD tax can show up in a lot of
Oh, it
ways.
can. But the thing is, we can just make minor changes and get more money back or stop spending. And
Absolutely.
in the fees, I think like we both talked about multiple times, there's an energy associated with
Yes.
the ADHD tax, the fees, the extra charges. There's an emotional toll
Cost.
to all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and in my opinion, personally, is that that's the worst tax of all. It's
Yes,
the sort
yes.
of accumulative, that it's the cumulative effect on how you feel about yourself
Yes, yes,
that
yeah.
is the most costly. Like
Yeah.
the money is one thing. I mean, I don't know I know some people who have money to blow, but the cost is one thing, but it's what it does to how you feel about yourself, how you feel about your role in the world, how you feel about your abilities, how you feel about your challenges. I think that's the biggest cost of all.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
So is there anything else related to the ADHD tax that we haven't discussed, or any final thoughts you want to leave people with today, Lynn?
I can't think of anything. Again, I think that, make sure you're not being an ostrich with its head in the
Yeah.
sand and your backside, having a bullseye on it. Make sure you're looking or getting help at looking, and really stop avoiding your own awareness of what's going on, so that you can start to solve some of these things.
Yes.
And know that you're not going to just like flip a switch and everything's going to be fine forever. Like, some of these are tendencies that you've had for a really long time
Yeah.
that take time to change. So give yourself some grace, give yourself permission to make gradual improvements, and think about why it matters to you to stop paying that ADHD tax,
Yes.
to the degree that you are right now.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Lynn. And thank you everyone for taking this time to listen to this ADHD Support Talk episode. If you're not a member of our Facebook group, make sure you join our Facebook group, where you can talk about the episodes and additional ADHD support chat. All right. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.